everybody. How's it going? This is just my quick video on demonstrating and showing you some things, mainly supplies and some what to do's, what not to do's. Basically showing you, some things that I tested out with pop-ups or paper engineering, as it were. I'm going to try to just piggyback this onto the PowerPoint slides so it won't be too long, or maybe I have to post it separate. But either way, a lot of the nuances of learning this process I'm actually going to leave to a YouTube channel that I found called the Pop-Up Channel. I'm just going to kind of use that to show you guys, but I'm going to run through a couple basic things just based on what I've told you to grab for this class. So first of all, supplies. Of course, as a paper engineer, you're going to need paper. Okay, so I think I told you to get cardstock in the supply list on the syllabus. The best kind of cardstock is like index level cardstock, which is 110-pound paper. It is a little sturdier than you absolutely need for pop-ups. So if you've gone and gotten the, I think 65, or it's like 65 or 90 pounds, I think it's 165, on the metric scale. This is 190 or 199 on the metric scale. But either way, basically this is index cardstock. Or you can get a slightly lighter cardstock. You don't want anything too thin. You don't want to use just regular paper for this. It's just not going to hold up. Like I said, I would pick 110-pound cardstock paper. That's your basic index card. It is a large packet, but honestly, you'll burn through a lot of this. So go ahead and grab it. It's like 200 sheets at Walmart, and it's only $6. I think there was a $5 version that was a little thinner, but I don't know. There's also color versions too, which might come in handy when we do our final later. But in any case, okay, so there you go. There's the actual cardstock that we're going to use for making the pop-ups. Then you, of course, need stuff to stick it together with and stuff to cut it. So first off, for sticking together, you can use Elmer's glue, or I really like to just use this stick glue. It is Elmer's stick glue. It won't last a super duper long time. So if you're really super into this project and you want it to last a while, you're going to want to get more like rubber cement, which is a whole different thing. Make sure you look up how to use rubber cement, because it's not like regular glue. You're supposed to put it on both sides, use pressure, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you don't get anything like Gorilla Glue. I don't know if super glue would work super well. Like I said, this is a good basic start, or plain Elmer's school glue. It's a good start as well. But yeah, spread it thin, let it dry well. Then, of course, you need something to cut with. I did mention in the supplies, just scissors. You can make this work with just scissors. And you can actually use the scissors as your folder as well, but I'll get to that in a minute. But you can kind of do everything with just glued scissors if you need to. But I do think it's better. You'll be able to get more detail and do some more decorative things if you get yourself an X-Acto blade, or like a box cutter, like a retracting blade type thing. But either way, just make sure it's like a razor blade type of utensil. And while you're using this, I don't have it on the desk right now because I'm probably just going to use another sheet of paper. Make sure you get something to cover surfaces with. Make sure you're not going to be cutting into the desk or something like that. You can get a cutting mat, or just use cardboard, or like I said, I just use a couple extra sheets of the cardstock. So use this to cut. You might also get a ruler as well. I've kind of just eyeballed most of this stuff. Honestly, in our final, you're probably going to need a ruler, so be sure you got that from the supply list. Ruler. And then, like I said, actually, you can use scissors for this project, for pretty much everything. It might be hard to get some of the details, but one of the things I want to talk about too is when you make folds in your paper, using just your hands might not be enough. So one of the other things you're going to need, and like I said, you can just use the scissors for this, or you can, I guess you can use your fingers, but I don't know, it just doesn't work super duper well. But it's something to reinforce your creases. I do think you can go back and forth on your creases with your fingers and get pretty good results. That's what the YouTube channel does that I'm going to show you or link for you. But overall, you need something to reinforce the creases. So you can use the back of the scissors. They actually make something called a bone folder, which is like a hard piece of plastic. You can get it at Hobby Lobby. That's like for serious paper folders. But honestly, the back of any pair of scissors pretty much does it. You can use a Sharpie. You can use a pen. You can also actually go in, and if your cardstock's really hard, you can actually use a pen with the ink out. Don't use a knife for this, but you can do something called scoring, which is like lightly pressing on a crease that you know you want to make, and it makes it fold like even better. But I will tell you, for all of the creasing, bone folding, scoring, any of it, I also find this tool, which is just a ceramic stick tool, pretty handy, or like a clay carving tool, I think is what they call it. I don't know, but it has this nice kind of rounded end that's a pretty hard wood, so you can use that, or the back of the scissors, whatever. But just it's something besides your hands that's going to make these creases really tight and clean. It just works really well. Yeah, I cut the edge of these with X-Acto knife. I didn't do a super great job on this one, but yeah, I just fold the pieces in half. In the assignment this week, I'm going to have you do 5 mechanisms. Okay, you're going to do 5 practice mechanisms, full 180 pop-up mechanisms, meaning, I mean, I guess you can play with some 90-degree ones if you want, which I'll get to in a second, but overall, I want you to do 5 full mechanisms, and I would do it on this size sheet, or, you know, the smallest you want to do is something where it's like 4x4, but overall, really, what I'll tell you this is just a half sheet. If you get regular size cardstock, regular size piece of paper, it's just a half sheet. I folded it in half and cut it in half, and I ended up with this nice kind of like greeting card size. I guess it would be like 5.5 by 8, but then I fold, so it's like 5.5 by 4, whatever that, or 4.25, whatever that is. But it's just a half sheet of paper. I guess hamburger style, half sheet. Don't make them too long and skinny. But either way, just like a small piece of paper that, you know, is longer than it is wide, and you can fold and create a nice card. You can cut an 8 by 8 sheet of paper and then fold it in half, and you'd have a 4 by 4, or you can just do this half sheet thing. Any case, yeah, you're going to do 5 mechanisms. Let me walk through some basics that he's going to talk about in his videos, but I'm just going to cover them real fast, and they're in the slides. This is stuff besides supplies. Okay, so first of all, the types of folds or types of pop-ups. So he will show you something called counter folds in the video, and I think it's important for you to know, because a lot of these counter folds are something that you will see as examples to do online. These are some pop-ups real quick that are just kind of, they're cool pop-ups, they're cool tricks, but they're not actually something you can do. But this is the first one, a counter fold. Okay, so to make your counter fold, basically what you do is you take your card and then you make cuts into it, and then you fold them the opposite way. Okay, I'm going to show you real quick how to do that with that piece I just made. Basically, this is how you make a counter fold. It's kind of handy to know. I'll show you. This one's going to be a parallel counter fold, which I'll get to that sort of designation in a minute. Yeah, basically they're handy to know because they're like fun for decoration, but they're not really true pop-ups, which I'll explain why in a second. Essentially, to make a counterfold, you just cut into the crease that you made on your piece of paper. And this one I cut parallel. For this one, that is my other example, I cut like diagonally into it and then folded, right? And essentially, all you do, you cut diagonally in, and then you crease, cut diagonally, cut parallel in, make creases that can kind of go back and forth, both sides creased. Okay, and then you essentially just take this, when you lay it flat again, open it up and pop it so that the fold goes the opposite direction. This is a nice, really easy, kind of computable way to make a pop-up. The problem with this is it is only usable really at a 90-degree angle. There's two things. One, when you open it all the way, it's totally flat, right? Kind of not really 3D design, okay? So keep in mind with this, guys, when we're playing with pop-ups here, I'm going to mention this in the slides, or I already have, and the thing that we're working with is the planes, right? So the planes of the piece of paper need to stick up into space, right? That's what's going to create the 3D form. So when we fold things flat and the plane of the piece of paper is flattened back out, it ceases to be three-dimensional design. We need these planes to move into space, okay? So we are limited in this form of pop-up by the fact that it only sticks out into space when it's at 90 degrees. The planes are they're the same piece of paper as the base, right there. It's literally coming out of your base, okay? It's the same sort of situation here with this one, okay? It only sticks up when it's not open all the way. We need it to be fully, when it's at 180 degrees, we need it to stick up, which this does not. It's too flat. Okay, the other thing is when it's closed, you have this big gap. So the only way these can work is if you have a multiple page pop-up, right? So it's at least 2 pages. Okay, if you plan on doing something with this, you have to plan on 2 pages. So I wouldn't really mess with it. And it also has to have a cover. So you can take this. Let's hear another little practice one I have. You could use this and you could stick it in another sheet, right? So it could have pop-up, but again, it's going to be flat when it's fully open. It just doesn't really work. These 90-degree or counterfold ideas don't really work. The other thing I'll show you that is a kind of a pop-up, but not really a pop-up, is this accordion fold stack, right? Accordion or zigzag fold. It's very cool, and it's very effective for decoration. I will count it as some good 3-dimensional decoration on your final, but it's not technically a full-on pop-up mechanism. Okay, so both of these are effective decorative ideas, and you can maybe use them with other pop-ups, but on their own, they're not full-on mechanisms because they are counterfolds. Okay, one thing I will point out is a type of crease. The counterfolds are effective for pointing this out. It's in the YouTube videos as well. Every pop-up has a gutter. I'll talk about that in a second, but notice with these 2 pieces, we have 2 different kinds of crease. There are creases where everything meets, comes to a point on the gutter. That's a converging crease, and then there's also creases where they're all parallel to the gutter. Either one of those will work. So those are the 2 types of creases, and you can have those in a counterfold mechanism that's 90 degrees, or you can have it in a true pop-up, which we'll look at in a second. But either way, yeah, there's converging and there's parallel. All right, so looking real quick at some actual mechanisms. Yeah, here, this is one. I made several. Okay, so these, you can see, these are actual pop-ups, true pop-ups, not just counterfolds, that stick out of a base, right? This folded card is your base. Right? They use a base and they use the principle of the gutter on the base, okay? So the 3 main principles of pop-ups, okay? They are that every pop-up must span a gutter. If it's a true pop-up, it has to go across this gutter, right, and stand up when it's flat, okay? That is why this little thing, even though, you know, it sticks out, this little zigzag fold, it sticks out, but it doesn't span the gutter. So it's not an ideal pop-up, okay? So if we make sure to span the gutter and it actually pops up, now we have true pop-ups. They use a base, they have a full gutter or gully. Sometimes in the video he always calls it a gully. But yeah, every pop-up has to span a gully, and the first gully is the actual spine of your card, okay? The second principle, so that's principle number 1. The second principle is that every pop-up, as it spans the gully, has to be even. Okay, now that sounds weird because I'm showing you this thing that's uneven. I've got another one right here that's uneven. But it's not really about it being perfectly even. You do have to use the gully, and it has to span the gully, but it can be asymmetrical if the angles are the same. So notice here, these are parallel, and there were some tricks that are kind of cool. I actually measured where this should be with it reversed, right? So the long side was over here, short side over here, and then I flipped it. And then one of the most effective ways to make sure you're getting things in the right place is just to glue one side, then fold it, and then glue the other side. I'll show you all that in a second with a V-fold. But yeah, anyway, just note that the angles on each side, you can really see it on this one. For the most part, the idea is the angles are the same on both sides of the gutter, even if the space, you know, and the actual gully of each pop-up is not in the center. Which actually brings me to my third point. Every pop-up creates a new gully. Okay, so see, this actually has two gullies, or it's a gully that is on both sides. This piece has a gully that actually sits right here, sort of off of the center, but it has created a new gully. Let's see, what else? That one that I showed you is off center. There's a gully right here that could be used effectively. Actually, this piece is a flat plane pop-up, and you can see I actually used a V-fold. You can kind of just see it there. And then the gully created by the V-fold to start another piece that sits on top, the flat plane. Okay, so yeah, those are the three principles. Every pop-up must span a gully. Every pop-up must be balanced on the gully. Remember, too, that first gully is the spine. And then the third principle is that every pop-up makes a new set of gullies. Basically, you can't have anything that doesn't fold. It's just not really going to work. Okay, so I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to in terms from the slides, other than, well, yeah, I guess that's basically it. Counterfolds are 90 degrees. We want full 180 with a base. The three principles. We have converging versus parallel creases, all that. But let me go over a couple of things real quick. Let me just show you real fast a V-fold, just to demonstrate one thing. It's kind of the most basic one, and just kind of get you an idea of how this works. First off, let me just take a sheet of paper. To make a V-fold, the most basic one, I'm just going to take a smaller piece of paper than the actual card that I'm using, and I'm going to fold it in half and basically create that gully, right? And I'm going to make sure this gully it's going to finish and will be parallel to the finished project, but technically the angles will be converging. They won't actually be parallel in the end, all of them, because it's a V-fold, right? These are not parallel. Essentially what I just did there, sorry, I'm making my tabs, okay? This is an important part of every single pop-up mechanism that you make, is that you're going to need tabs, and those tabs need to be thick enough and strong enough to actually hold your piece up. And I actually kind of fouled up. I did the cuts before I made the tabs to kind of guide me. I should have done this little foldy thing first. Let me show you why in a second. Now I've got it. It's not really straight across, so I have to kind of go in and fix it a little bit. But essentially, you guys are getting the idea. You got to have tabs. You have to have something that is going to hold your pop-up to the piece of paper. Okay. So now, for this V-fold, right, which is kind of the most basic form of fold, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to go ahead and glue with the V-fold. I actually can go ahead and glue both sides first, but let me just go ahead and show you. Usually with this, these principles, you want to, sorry, I'm going to go ahead and switch sides here. I like to make the tabs during this practice. I've been doing it where I can really see the tabs, because for this, I want to point out that if, after I've made that cut, if I lay down the V-fold, at a perfectly right angle, when it opens, it's going to be also at a right angle to the final plane. I can actually go ahead and open it so that it's a little more open, so that when it's at 180, it actually leans some, or I can make it even tighter so that it leans forward. Right? There's different things you can do with that, but the most basic one I'm just going to go ahead and do here, where I leave it at a perfectly right angle up top. You can see. Watch the videos for more information if what I just said was a little too fast. I'm trying to get this done before it gets super far in. But in any case, I glue down both of these sheets of paper. I make sure that this gutter, in this case, is lined up with the gutter or gully of the piece. The gully of the new one is lined up with the gully of the final. But in any case, I do that, and then I close. And notice that it doesn't necessarily fold evenly, right? It can fold up or down. It can kind of move. It depends on the shape of your pop-up. We'll see where it folds. And your goal is going to be to make sure that when you're done with your mechanisms, especially on the final, but try it on the practice too, that they do not go outside of your actual card. Our final project is going to be a full pop-up card, or like a little brochure that you're going to make. But you need to practice these mechanisms first. Essentially, there you go. I've got it glued down with my stick glue. Let it sit for a second. If it's like a really complex thing, you might want to put a a little bit of weight on here, a book or something, but I'm moving fast. And you can see now I've made a pretty simple, effective, just right angle V-fold. Okay, he has a whole YouTube series on 5 different types of V-folds, ones that are asymmetrical. That's how I did this one, right? So, and you can see I did a couple practice runs, but yeah, I've got some that you know, this one's off center, but it still folds up and hides inside, and it's still a V-fold. It's still a converging crease technically because everything's meeting. But in any case, you've got all that potential there with V-folds. Right, and that's all I'm going to super demonstrate here. I've showed you some other ones that I've made, and there's a lot on. But let me show you a couple other ones that I did make. That, you know, just some things that I learned. First off, there's a lot of videos out there. I don't think that the pop-up channel has this one, but there's one that does this sort of fan accordion style. I will tell you, my experience is it doesn't work super well. Okay, it's really simple. It's like a zigzag fold. Same idea as like the type of thing that you use to make this like really basic pop-up, right? It's just a piece of paper that you fold back and forth and then leave stacked up, right? So you're making like a little zigzag, okay? And that's how you make this, but then you fold it in half at the end. When you're done, you fold it, right? If this were bigger, I could show you. But after you fold it in half, you glue it in, and then it's supposed to fan out. But again, it pretty much only works as a 90-degree one. So if you see this as a pop-up, just be wary. It's a little trickier than you think. Let me show you something I kind of figured out on the V-fold. Oh yeah, I put the V-fold in a pop-up with this fan, and you can see I can't really even get the V-fold to fully open because the fan is kind of messing it up. That's a kind of something to pay attention to, is how your mechanisms interact. Remember, you can have things that are off center, so you know if they fold upright, and then when you open them, they don't actually have to all be super in line. Yeah, what else I learned? Oh yeah, and then I just pointing out that there's another gully created by this V-fold. Something good for you guys to see. What's some other examples I made? I think I already showed you the box, right? One thing I'll tell you with the box, things I figured out trying that is, number one, there are 4 sides to this box, but it's really just a regular V-fold. It's the same idea as that one that I demonstrated for you a second ago, right? It's the same idea as this. It just also has 2 more sides on it. But really, at the end of the day, it's just the same as a regular V-fold. You can see, okay? But then it has those 2 back walls. You can make things uneven, just pointing that out again. This takes some trial and error, guys. You're going to have to figure that out. He has videos about it, yeah, where you measure with the long side over here, short side over here, and then you flip it, and that kind of seems to do the magic trick. The easiest way, though, is to just set it where you want it, where, you know, it's especially easy if you have your gutters parallel, but you set it, you glue it, and then you close it with glue on the other tab, and it'll sort of stick, right? I can just glue this side, then put glue on this side, fold it up, close it, it'll stick. Okay, so another one not to do here, as I'm pointing out, is it goes off the page. Okay, this mechanism is a little tricky. Something to think about. Boxes, any kind of table planer folds, anything that kind of moves up and down the gully or gutter, you're going to have to contend with potentially going off the page. What are some other ones? Okay, I think this is the last demonstration I just want to show you. This one's really like my favorite. It's kind of like the table fold, or what they call a floating plane fold. You can see here. And you can use all different kinds of folds to get this. The most basic one is just to use a V-fold. But I will tell you, it doesn't really work if you just use the V-fold. You kind of have to use the box V-fold for the table to work super well. I learned. That's what I kind of, in my trial and error, figured out is if you try to skip and just do a regular V-fold for a table, it doesn't fully unfold itself. Okay? Yeah, it needs a back to fully unfold. Okay, but yeah, if you notice, I can kind of deconstruct this. I don't know, this was pretty good actually. Yeah, you can see it's tearing. It's okay. Essentially, all I did was make a regular V-fold. That's what this is, and then I made like a separate little book that's whatever shape you want it to be, and then I glued it on one side. Then I put glue on this tab, closed it up, and it stuck there. Okay, but notice, yeah. So that's glue one side open, then close. glue this side, close the whole thing. Boom. That's how you get an effective opening. But again, it's only going to be effective if you have it back. Okay. I think those are all my little tips and tricks and extra things. So yeah, this week you're going to make 5 of these. It'll all be in the slides. Those definitions and principles are going to be in the slides. You know, the idea of how we use planes, the idea of everything has a gully, is balanced, and every pop-up makes a new gully. The difference between 90 degree and 180 degree, all in the slides. Everything's there for you guys to use. But then the big thing, you're going to need more specific tutorials on how to do things than just my one little pop-up. And so you're going to go to the pop-up channel on YouTube, which I'll provide in a link. And yeah, so you have the week to do these 5 practice mechanisms, and then I'll either make a sketch for your final, yeah, we'll do it next week, but it'll be a very quick turnaround so that you can get started on the final next week as well. Okay, thank you guys.